So last summer, I invited the parents at Good Shepherd to read this book with me. It's called Brain Body Parenting by Mona Delahook. I'd heard so many good things about it, but I hadn't read it yet myself. So I thought, let's try this one out and see like how this can help us come up with new strategies in the parenting world, because us parents are always dealing with behaviors of children, right? There's so many annoying behaviors that go on. They're like, what do we do with these? Like, how can I try to peacefully address my child, but also help those behaviors to improve? So the first question that I wanted to ask this morning was, what is it that we actually want our kids to be like when they grow up, right? Like, what are these characteristics that we would like them to have, that we're hoping for? Like, we'll know we succeeded as a parent if our children are like this. So we have, let's see what we've got here. Okay. We've got some good answers here. What do we want our kids to be like when they grow up? Kind with a concern for others, a sense of how to use her gifts for the good of the world. Happy, kind, and self-sufficient. Emotionally attuned with their bodies and needs. Someone read the book. Confident in their choices. Kind. What we aspired to be when we were young without all the mess ups. Self-starters, compassionate, accepting of all people and walks of life. Kind and happy. I also put some like more practical things down here. Get a good job, right? We want them to be able to support themselves and to also have meaningful relationships when they grow up too, because that's really important. Okay, but what are the things that are really kind of getting in the way of these goals? It's like everyday life with kids, there's all these behaviors that drive us crazy. Okay, not listening, not brushing teeth, yelling. This must be someone with younger kids. Spiraling, meltdown of nose, kicking, hitting, biting, talking over adults in conversation. When I offer two choices, she picks one. And when we start moving forward with said choice, she starts screaming for the other one. That sounds about right. Nonstop yelling, bickering with one another, back talk, fighting with siblings, not listening to safety cues in public places like a parking lot or a store, a zoo, or a park. That really scares us, right? When our children are doing something that they could actually get hurt and they are not listening to me. Okay. And on top of that, we have so many stressors in the parenting world today. Just, this is a big one, I think. Always feeling like you're being judged by other parents. Do you feel that? I sure do. Worried you're not doing a good enough job. Like at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I should have done that differently. Oh, I'm not giving them enough green food to eat, or I'm not giving them enough sleep, or whatever it is. Work-life balance, judgment from others. There it is again. Not knowing how to discipline. And that's why you're here today. Not enough societal support. Time can easily be overfilled. Social media. Yep, that's a huge one. Feeling judgment for whatever choice. Mom guilt for because of judgment. Social media, there it is again. We always compare ourselves, right? Too many differing options for what's the best. So there's a lot going on in the parenting world. A lot of pressures on us, and then a lot of behaviors from our children, and then these hopes and dreams that we have for them, and how do we actually get them to that point? So this book does a really great job of looking at current neuroscience and how the brain and the body play a really big role in that, and how we as adults and parents can actually help support our children to get to those dreams that we have for them. Okay, so this is just a timeline of when a child is 0 until they're 24. And this is broken up into the way that Maria Montessori breaks it up into planes of development. So 0 to 6 is considered infancy, 6 to 12 is childhood, 12 to 18 is adolescence, and 18 to 24 is maturity. So let's start talking about this with looking at how we gain physical skills. So let's say you have a child who would like to be able to get the basketball into the hoop from the free throw line. So that's the physical skill they're trying to gain. And mom takes the child out to the court to practice a little bit. And let's say the child throws the ball and they miss. And the mom says, you know what, that is it. Go to your room. You think about what you've done. And next time you come out here, you better get it in there. Do you think that's actually going to help this child to gain the skill? Probably not. Probably not. What if they took the other approach of like, oh, you know what? You missed the ball this time, but if you get the ball in every other single time that we're out here for the next hour, I'm going to take you to get some ice cream. What do you think of that? You know, obviously this child would love to have that ice cream, but is it really up to them if they make it in? No, is that really going to help them to get the ball into the hoop? Not really. What if they shot the ball and missed it and you said, oh, sweetie, you're just making mommy so sad. Why won't you get it in the hoop? Why would you miss it when I asked you to get it in? No, so the child probably feels like, oh, I'm making mom feel guilty and sad. I wish I could do better. You know, why am I doing this to my mom? Why am I making her sad? But it's really, is it up to the child if they get it in? Not really. Sometimes we'll do things like lecturing, right? That's it. You missed it. You know what? When we were in the car, we talked about this, and you told me every time you threw the ball, you were going to get it in. So why are we out here and you're not doing it? You told me, and now you're lying. You know, like we keep talking at them. What do you think your child is doing? La, 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 la. I'm not going to listen to you. Is that actually helping them to learn the skill of getting the ball into the hoop? And sometimes too, we'll even do things like comparing to another person, right? Like, well, geez, your sister always makes it in when she shoots. Why can't you do it? Like, do you think that's going to help them? They're probably ready to like figure out how to get back at their sister, right? And probably just angry at the parent. So lots of these strategies that we use in today's world of parenting really aren't that helpful, right? I mean, in learning this physical skill, it's very obvious because what do we actually need to get that ball into the hoop? Well, first of all, we just have to wait for development to unfold, right? Your body has to be big enough to hold that basketball. Your body needs to be tall enough to get it in the hoop. Your arms need to be strong enough, like with the muscles and all that. And you obviously wouldn't ask like a 2-year-old to take a regular basketball and try to get a free throw and make it in because obviously they just can't do that yet. So you have to wait for development to unfold. You also have to have practice doing the thing in real time. So let's say there's a child who started this skill at age 6 and they practice every weekend or every day after school. And there's another child who starts at age 12. Who do you think is going to be better at this skill? The one who's been practicing longer, right? So some children have more experience doing the thing that we're trying to get them to do, and some start much later. So in addition to just individual practice within the environment, we do something that's called scaffolding. And this is when an adult will offer assistance to a child or another person, any person offering assistance where a skill is not yet mastered, right? So for this one, with a young child, maybe like a 1-year-old, you just start with a ball, rolling it back and forth. Okay, this is a ball, we can roll it back and forth. Then maybe when they're a toddler and they're running around, they want one of those like little hoops with the little ball, and then they can practice actually getting the ball into the hoop, but it's their size. It's not the full size one. So we're taking them like step by step to get there. They're probably watching other kids in the neighborhood playing, or maybe watching it on TV with their family, or going to a real game and seeing professionals doing it. So it's like, wow, this is what it looks like when it's happening. It's modeled to them. Even when they're getting older, a short child might want to just do the real hoop, but oh, let me just hold you up and then you can get it in. Or for the older child who really wants to do it on their own, let's just lower that hoop and then you can use the real basketball and shoot it in. So it's like this scaffolding where you take children step by step until they master it. Okay. I was going to let everyone know too that I can share these slides with you. So if you'd rather just like pay attention and not write, that's okay too. But if you'd like to write just when you're listening, that's also great. And here's the big question too. Once the child can successfully make a free throw, will they have success 100% of the time? The answer is no, right? Even if you've mastered it. Well, you did it yesterday. Why aren't you doing it today? Like, well, because I hurt my arm yesterday when I was wrestling with my brother, or I didn't eat breakfast this morning and I'm really hungry and I just don't have the same stamina, or maybe their eyes are starting to get bad and they don't even know they need glasses yet. So it could be like a physical thing. It could be something that happened yesterday, or just you shot and you missed. It happens, right? So now we're going to talk about emotional skills. So let's say the goal for this little girl is when she gets upset to not hit her sister. Like something happens, her sister makes her mad. her go-to is always just hitting her sister. Okay. So what if something happens and the little sister starts pounding on the older sister and mom or dad says, that's it, go to your room, think about what you've done. Next time you better come and be nice to your sister. Okay. Like, is that really going to help them get those skills to know how to be nice to the sister? Similar, what if we offered a reward? Well, if you don't hit your sister all day long, we're going to go get those cookies from the store that you really liked. Okay. So just don't hit your sister. It's like, I wish it was up to her to make that choice, but it's much more complicated than that. She's not just choosing to. It's like she hasn't developed these skills yet to control those emotions and anger. What if you compare, well, your sister never hits you when she gets mad, so why can't you just be more like her? That's going to make them feel like, oh, I'm really mad at my sister, and oh, I'm mad at mom and dad. They're not going to be thinking about, oh, next time I'm going to be nice. They're thinking about more like, how can I get back at this person, right? So like all these strategies that we use aren't actually very helpful. It's just like what comes naturally to us. It's like traditional parenting. And unless we know another way, it's like, that's just what you do. Like, that's how I was parented. That's how I should do it with my child. So like, no shame to anyone who does these things, because we all do. I still do them, even though I do talks like this, just comes back to you. So what do we actually have to do to develop emotional skills? Similar to the physical skills, you first have to wait for development to unfold, right? So much of control of emotions has to do with the brain just forming, and that takes years to happen. So oftentimes it's very deceiving, because when a child starts talking around the age of 2, for example, and they can talk to you and respond and listen, and it seems to be very logical, even if they say like, oh, I'm not going to hit my sister, or I won't take that train from them, they can say that, but what their body can do, they cannot fulfill what they have said. And it's very deceiving, because we just assume so much from these little tiny people who have so much more development to do. And we take it personally, because we feel like, well, why are you lying to me? But it's actually just more development has not yet unfolded for this child. And then similar to the basketball example, you actually just have to have day-to-day practice for many years dealing with the situation. We have to practice not hitting your sister when you're mad. And how can we do that? Well, that scaffolding piece again. Like with the younger child, it's going to look different than the older child. Like for a younger child, often between my kids, I would just like stand like a barrier like this, like, oh, looks like there's a lot of hitting right now. I'm worried someone's going to get hurt. And then just kind of like push them apart like this, and help them to find a different place to play. You don't need to punish anybody. The goal is to keep them safe, right? And just to keep them apart, and then like get them interested in something else. And then we'll try again next time. Like the repeated practice with this scaffolded by an adult is what's going to help them to gain this skill better. This is another big piece that we often miss as adults, is just simply acknowledging your child's frustration. Like, oh gosh, you look really mad. What's going on? Someone's going to get hurt. I see a lot of hitting. I just like saying, you guys are really mad. Like, you're mad and I'm worried someone's going to get hurt. Let's just separate for a little bit. Like, you go in that room with dad. I'll stay in here with you. Let's cool down. So you kind of help them just work it out. Sometimes you're by yourself, so you have to be very creative with how you can calm the parties down, because it's just one of you. So, you can figure that out, work it out. But adults too can also scaffold by setting limits kindly and firmly. Like, there is too much energy in this room. We have got to separate. Like, you can go play in that room and you can come in the kitchen with me. Like, you can still say it with a firm voice, but it's like, whoa, something's going on. We got to stop this. And it's not doing any of that blame and shame or making them feel guilty, like you're making mommy sad, or why can't you be more like your sister? It's like, we are going to solve this problem, and we can do it in this way that is much more kind and firm. This is a big one we're going to talk about today, is co-regulating to help the child get back to a calm state. And that's basically, once you are calm as the adult, you can share your calm with that child to get them back to this state of receptivity. Because oftentimes in these moments of conflict, that's when they're like off the wall, or they're like shutting down and hiding. They can't hear anything you're saying to them. You have to get them back more to this receptive state before any learning or any problem solving can be done. And then also just working through problem solving ideas together. So like for young children, it's lots of times parents get this advice, let them work it out on their own, which is great. But first, they need to have someone model some ideas for them. Like, especially when they're younger, you can't just leave a 2 and a 4-year-old and say, oh, okay, you guys work it out. I'll be in the other room. Then you just hear pounding again. It's like, sometimes you're like the physical barrier between them. Once everyone is calm, say, what are some other ways we could do that? Maybe you could have asked if you could use that when she was done. Or maybe she could offer you another toy that she likes until she's done. Or like just kind of going through, and lots of times they'll come up with their own ideas that seem crazy, but they both agree with it. You're like, okay, let's try it out and see. And oftentimes it works. So listen to your child too, but you can also help them come up with some ideas. And then this question too. So once this child can successfully resolve conflicts peacefully, will they have success 100% of the time? No, just like adults, like we still lose it, right? And we're adults. So oftentimes we have higher expectations for our children than we even have for ourselves. So just knowing like today is a hard day. You're not going to be able to put your shoes on by yourself. I'm going to help you. Or I know you didn't get a lot of sleep. I'm going to sit next to you right now while we're eating and just be with you, so just recognizing not 100% of the time are they going to get it right. I love this. I just found this yesterday and put it in. So what is emotional regulation? It's the difference between your child dropping their ice cream on the floor and having a huge meltdown, which will happen, and your child dropping their ice cream on the floor, feeling disappointed and asking for another one. So it's not like we want to help children to not feel these bad emotions anymore or like get rid of them. Like everyone is going to feel emotions. Everyone's going to get frustrated. Everyone is going to feel out of control, but it's what we do with those feelings that we're trying to help our child with. We don't want to tell them feelings aren't good. We want to tell them, feel your feelings, but what do you do with it? Okay. So another example is it's the difference between feeling angry, storming off and slamming the door, and feeling angry and saying, I'm so angry I could slam this door. I won't, but that's how angry I feel right now. So it's like they still have them, but they're not going to do that thing that's not really appropriate in your social environment. Okay. So it's not about not feeling the emotions. In both scenarios, there is that anger and disappointment. It's about feeling the emotion and then managing it and containing it and expressing it in a healthier way. So that's more the goal for our children. Okay, so this big question is like, what do we actually do to help a child develop those emotional skills that are going to, in turn, affect those behaviors and how they act them out? And then how do we get them to be those things that we want them to be when they grow up? So we're going to talk about something that Mona Delahook points out in her book, Brain Body Parenting. She talks about the autonomic nervous system. And our bodies have a few different nervous systems in there. Like we have the central nervous system, which is our brain and our spinal cord. We have a nervous system that helps with our bones and our muscles. But this one specifically is the autonomic nervous system. And its job is to automatically regulate our internal organs, like our blood vessels and sweat glands and all their functions so that our bodies can maintain homeostasis. And this works as like feedback loops between the brain and then our sensory systems, which we're going to talk about a little more detail right now. So first of all, everyone has a brain in their head, right? And our brains, from the day we are born, are these prediction machines. So all the experiences we have, our brain takes them in and makes this basically like a database or a catalog of these experiences. And it catalogs, was this a safe experience? Did it feel good? Was it pleasurable? Was it just kind of a neutral experience? Or was it something that was scary? Was it something that was frightening? Did I feel defensive in this state? And the reason your brain does this is that so next time the same thing or something like it happens in the environment, I'm going to know how to respond to protect myself. Okay. So your body actually has these like physiological responses sent from the brain to tell your body like, you should get away from here, or you should shut down because you are not safe right now, or this feels good, I'm going to be happy and receptive. So your brain takes all these in, and the job of your brain is just for survival of your body. And the reason we have this is because it is an adaptive strategy that has worked for us ever since humans came to be for over 200,000 years. some of the threats of the environment 200,000 years ago are much different than today, right? Like maybe you hear the roar of a predator and you know, whoa, time to get out of here, right? If I want to be safe. Or you see lightning and you hear a big thunderclap and you know, oh, got to get to safety right now because there's a big storm coming. So similar to that, today, like we might be standing by the road and we hear a loud car coming by without even realizing it. You just jump out of the way, right? It's like these automatic responses that happen. So we have these same strategies that have worked for us for all of humanity that are still with us to this day. And this is just an image of some of the functions of the brain. And if you look down at the bottom, the pink part, that's more like the primitive parts of the brain that really are with us from when we are born very well, like breathing, heartbeat. Like you don't have to tell your heart to beat, right? It just does it because your body knows to do that. Digestion, swallowing, alertness, sleep, body temperature. So this is the more primitive part of the brain. But the part of the brain that really helps with emotional regulation is more the upper part of the brain, where a lot of these executive functions emerge. And these take up to about, I think they say now like 25 or 26 years for a brain to fully mature. So if you think about, you know, our children who are very young, oftentimes we ask of them many things that really it takes a lifetime to be able to do them because of how the brain is forming. So a lot of executive functions would be like being able to adapt to a change in the routine very smoothly, or knowing how to plan and to organize, be flexible, things like that. So those help a lot with emotional skills. So again, we have the brain, and now we are going to talk about the different sensory systems that exist. And when I was growing up, I learned about 5 senses. I don't know if you guys know about all the other new ones that have been discovered more recently. But this one was particularly interesting to me. This one is called interoception. And this is basically like your internal sensations. So every person will have sensations inside their body, and that these sensations provide information to our brain. And then our brain takes that in, and then it triggers a conscious feeling of things like hunger, pain, thirst, nervousness, even the need to use the toilet is part of an interoceptive feeling, like feeling that pressure on the bladder and knowing, oh, this means I have to go to the bathroom. And just in general, these interoceptive feelings generate our basic feeling states and moods. So this is what makes us feel our emotions. Am I happy? Am I sad? Am I jealous? Am I embarrassed? And it's like these feelings that we feel. And then the next step is, what do we do with those feelings, right? So interoception is huge. And there's just a lot of new research going on about this that I'm really excited to learn more about. For all of these senses too, a person can either be underreactive, so like they might not notice it as much as someone else. You might be neutral toward it, or you might be overreactive. So like underreactive might be if you have a child that has like a big gash on their arm and it's bleeding heavily and they just like don't notice it. You know, it's like, wow, you have a really big injury and you're just playing and you don't notice it. Like they might be under receptive to that pain that they're feeling and they just might not notice it. So Mona Delahook gives us some strategies and how we can help a child to better be aware of some of these feelings that they have and to kind of get them more to like that neutral zone of like understanding. So what can parents do? So first, with interoception, parents can help to bring awareness to internal sensations. And that's like without judgment. Sensations aren't good or bad. It's just your body telling you things. Then you can name them like, oh, I hear a growl in your tummy. I bet you're hungry. Would you like a snack? And then you can, and furthermore, you can also help a child to become more aware of those like minute differences, like the pain example, like, wow, your arm is really bleeding. We have to take you to the emergency room right now, or something like that. On the flip side, you might have a child who gets like tiniest little cut, you're like, ah, which you all probably identify with very well. And you can, you know, oh, wow, that looks like that really hurts. Let's go get a Band-Aid. let's take a deep breath. Like, you're okay. We don't have to go to the emergency room. This hurts. This is something we can take care of at home. I'll sit with you. Like, is there anything else that you need? It's kind of helping them to realize like it's not the end of the world, not judging them for it, not saying like, well, geez, that shouldn't hurt. It's just a tiny cut. Because to them, it feels really bad. So we just have to acknowledge like what is their body actually telling them, and then kindly and lovingly help them kind of like regulate them, and then talk to them about the gravity of it. Is it actually that bad, or is it not so bad? I had in the first handout I wanted to talk about was this kind of salmon colored one. And these are all directly from the book, but I thought if you should have anything printed from the book, this is so helpful, because she goes through all of the different senses and she does a stop and observe for parents, just so that they can like think of their own particular child. And then you could read these questions, like things that you might have never even thought about, like with your child. Like for example, for interoception, it says like, how comfortable is your child with identifying and naming basic sensations coming within their body? Does your child seem to notice if they're hungry or having a growling tummy? Can your child tell if they're sleepy and want to go to bed or take a nap? Can your child tell if they're in pain, where the pain is and the level of pain? And then she goes through and sees like, does your child have negative reactions to things? What positive reactions do they have? And she says here too, like you can model it for your child by naming your own bodily sensations and how you experience them as they happen in everyday life. I'm hungry, I'm gonna have a snack. Or I'm thirsty, I want a big, nice cup of water. So it's like very simple things that you might already do anyways, but it's just like tuning them into like, I have this sensation, this is what I do about it, okay? So we should also let children know that whatever they're feeling, it's okay. They're just clues to what's happening in their bodies, and can help us know how to help them feel better as well. So that's interoception. I didn't know anything about the interoception before I read this book. It was so interesting. Then we also have all these external sensations. So things that we receive from our external environments through our bodies. These are the usual ones that I knew about: hearing, sight, touch, taste, smell. Then there's two at the bottom that I had to learn a little more about. So hearing, we just have receptors in our ear that take in sounds, and they send those sounds to our brain, and it integrates with other sensory systems, and then we can make sense of those sounds. So for some children, like when we hear sounds, we often hear sounds right next to us in the foreground, and then sounds in the background. And if your child, this also is that same spectrum of, you can be underreactive, overreactive, or neutral. So like if a child is underreactive to sound, for example, you might feel like, gosh, whenever I call them to dinner, they just don't listen to me. Like, why are they being rude? But it's like the child is sitting here doing something totally engaged. Their sound is under receptive. They hear mostly sounds around them, like, oh, there's a car driving by out the window, or, something right next to me. I hear my sister crunching on her Cheerios or something. But that background noise, I just don't hear it. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be mean, but it's just, Mom, come closer and talk to me, and then I can hear you. So lots of times we can change the way that we communicate with our children too, to help them with that. So if you notice, like every time you're trying to tell your child something from far away, they just don't listen, you might try walking over to them, looking in their eyes, maybe connecting with them for a second, like, oh, what are you doing? Oh yeah, you're watching your favorite show. Oh, what's happening right now? And then you've connected with them for a second, and they say, oh, by the way, dinner's on the table, it's time to come. It's like just a little more friendly. And I still yell across the room at my kids. I'm not saying every time you have to do this, but it's like just a different strategy. If you like feel at the end of your rope, it's like, oh, maybe I could try this today. I'm gonna go sit next to them and look in their eyes and put my hand, a gentle hand on their knee or something. So there's just different ways that we can like accommodate those things. Sight in the visual system. We just see the cones and rods in our eyes take in things from the environment, sent to the visual processing center of the brain, and then we interpret it visually. And some children might even just through sight experience things as like, that doesn't feel good to me. Like seeing broccoli on a plate, that does not feel good to me. I do not like the sight of this. And it's like, obviously as parents, we know like, oh, we want to get our kids to eat vegetables. That's a great thing, but like, this child is having a physiological response to this broccoli because it's scary to them. Like for some reason, this broccoli is not looking good. So having a kind attitude about like, oh, you don't like how that looks. Well, you don't have to eat it right now, but mommy and daddy are going to eat it or something. Just like giving these cues of safety around these things that are very scary can help them to eventually get there instead of like the forcing it on them sort of thing. So she also has good examples of all of these stop and observes, like the sight one, for example. What kinds of sights calm your child and bring joyful interactions into your relationship? Are there certain picture books that your child loves to read with you? Sitting in your lap, the tone of your voice, along with the drawings or pictures, are likely a winning combination by your child's overall sensory experience. This is a big one too. I love this because body language is such an important thing with our children and other humans in general. Notice how your child responds to you when you're tense in the body or the face. We often wear our platform on our visage, transmitting our emotions through our facial expressions. That's another reason to check yourself and give yourself what you need so that you can soothe your child through your empathic facial expressions. You and your child will both benefit. So I always want to remind parents, just your body language is that first thing that your child notices and takes in. Okay. So similarly, smell and taste, those are very highly connected. So some children might even like gag at a certain smell or something because they're overreactive to it. Taste and smell also have a lot of very emotional memories with it too. Like we might have happy memories about food we've eaten, like, oh, that Thanksgiving dinner, every time I smell it, it just makes me think of family time and being together and that special time of year where it's cozy. Or like maybe you think of like, oh, spaghetti, that's that thing I ate right before I got the stomach bug. And I am not going to look at spaghetti again in the same way for years because you associate this negative thing with it. So that might be happening with your child too. Okay, so these are the more interesting ones too, the body awareness and the proprioceptive system and balance in the vestibular system. So I have to read this one because I don't know it off the top of my head, but um, so the proprioceptive system, it tells the brain about our body's positions, like where our bodies are in space. Like if you're standing, if you're sitting, you're bending or reaching, your muscles, joints, and your body sends message to the brain about when and how the joints are bending, extending, being pulled or compressed upon. And this is the sense that helps us kind of move efficiently around rooms and places. So like if I was walking past this row of chairs here, it's the sense like when I'm walking, I don't even have to look, but I know how to go around the corner without bumping into the edge. So oftentimes you might see your children doing some of these things. Now, just for young children too, coordination and that sort of thing is just something that takes time for development to unfold. But if you notice it like particularly heavy or unusual in your child, it might be their proprioceptive system is not yet fully integrated. So that's something that even some children work with occupational therapists or physical therapists to really help better integrate those systems because those specialists know so much more about what actual activities to do with that child to help them to gain those skills. So it's really fascinating to learn about like, oh, maybe they do need a little help from a specialist that could give them those activities that will help that proprioceptive system. Like sometimes too, even children in your family or like being a teacher, noticing this with children in the classroom, like one child touches another child and they think they're being gentle, but they're actually pushing really hard. And so this can cause like some social issues because the child who is pushing hard just thinks they're giving their friend like, oh, a little tap on the back, but like the other child interprets it as like, this child's attacking me. So it just helping both children to understand, what's actually going on here. Like, oh, this person was trying to say hello to you. What's a different way they could say hello to you? Or that felt too rough for this person. Like, how could we talk to them or touch them more gently? So just helping them to grade things again in real life. Like, is this heavy? Is this light? Is this a strong push? Is this a light push? So just working through that information with them is really helpful. And then balance in the vestibular system. This one is interesting too, because it has to do with sensors in your inner ear, and it sends brain to your information about the position of your head and your entire body in relation to gravity and movement. So this really affects our balance. I don't know if any of you have ever had like vertigo before or something like that, but that's what's going on here. These sensors in your inner ear are out of whack. And so you cannot see straight. The room is spinning. you know, and this is like one of the senses that for a young child, for example, like they might be affected by motion sickness or something like that in the car. Like if you have a child who seems ultra sensitive to riding in the car seat in the car, it might be, wow, they're sitting in this car seat in a moving car, looking out the window at all these things moving by them really fast, and they are just feeling like dizzy and nauseous. We don't even know. We just think, oh, they don't like the car seat or whatever, but this might be going on. So just like another way to understand our child's behaviors. It's so helpful. So yeah, I really encourage you when you go home to read this over and think about your own particular children, because for everyone, it's going to be very different, just based on their own body. How do they take in life through their senses, and how does their interoception work? What is their interoceptive awareness? Again, there's that underreactive, overreactive, neutral. Some children too can be sensory craving. Like you might notice a child that just wants to swing, or they just want to jump on the trampoline and they will not stop jumping on the trampoline. So they're like needing this input on their body. And so they're trying to get it in whatever way they can. And this is something else too, that like a occupational therapist or physical therapist might work with a child to do, to help them to give their body what they need so those cravings won't be so intense, just so that normal life can happen a little more fluidly. So that's the handout here. Oh, this is kind of a gross image, but I put it up here because it's interesting. It's called a homunculus. But basically, like if our body parts were in proportion to the amount of space it takes up in our brain, this is what our bodies would look like. Isn't that so interesting? Like, look at the hands. They are so big, and the lips in the mouth. We take in so much of the world and our day-to-day life through touch. You know, like this is our biggest sensory system because skin covers our whole body, right? And just like taking things through our mouth. So interesting. So it's kind of gross, but I think it's really cool to see. So what do we do to help our children? We model respect for our body signals. So we talked about this already. We help children become aware of and identify their sensations. We don't judge them as good or bad. We're curious about them. Like, oh, well, what does that mean? What could I do to help them? And it's fascinating too, because just this ability to understand sensations and name them is one of the key things in helping children to be able to self-regulate. Just understanding their signals from their body and naming them. Like this, being able to self-regulate is what helps with these behaviors, okay? And sometimes as parents, without even realizing it, we hint to our children that they shouldn't be listening to their body signals. And we do this with the best intention, right? Like after you just eat dinner, your child says, Mom, I'm hungry. You're like, no, you're not. You just had dinner. You know, it's like we're telling them, don't listen to your body because I know better because I'm the adult. But instead of doing that, you could just simply say like, oh, are you still hungry? You know, do you remember we just had dinner? You don't think that wasn't enough for your body? Like ask your stomach, am I still hungry? And then maybe they say, I'm still hungry. And so you decide like, okay, would you like a snack? Or, you know, we're gonna wait until this time for dinner. So you might feel a little uncomfortable, but I think it's okay. And we're gonna have dinner at this time. So do you see like the same result can be achieved just like in a different way? Just acknowledging it. Or like the pain example, like tiny little cut and your child freaking out instead of saying, oh, it can't hurt that bad. You're going to be fine. You know, we think by minimizing it, we're going to help them feel better. But what they're actually hearing is, oh, you're not listening. You don't understand what's going on with me. Like, how can I get you to understand? And that's often why the crying elevates. It's like, they're not listening to me. I need to let them know this really hurts. But oftentimes, like the second you acknowledge it, like, oh, wow, that looks really like that hurts a lot. You can see them their bodies start to relax. Like, oh, she understands. Oh, you know, it won't always do that, but it helps. It helps them to ramp it down instead of ramping it up. So all humans in general, even us as adults, we just want to be understood. We just want to be understood. So there's this concept of neuroception, which is these feedback loops that are happening between the brain, right, which is your prediction machine, taking in all this information about all the experiences you've had. And, you know, was it safe? Was it neutral? Was it scary? And then you interpreting these internal sensations, having feelings, also taking in things from the environment. So can you see how each person would be so different. Everyone has a different brain. Everyone has had different experiences. Everyone has different interoceptive awareness. Everyone takes in the world through their senses very differently. And so children and all adults have this subconscious detection of threat or safety based on all these things and these feedback loops working together. So here's the question. Are some humans just doomed to this life of fear because of, their interoception or their senses or their past experiences? And are some humans just lucky enough to feel good and safe? Where do we actually have influence or control over this? So this is Dr. Stephen Porges. He's the one who came up with this, who coined this term neuroception from polyvagal theory. And this is what really changed Mona Delahooke's life and her approach to working with families when she was a clinical psychologist. And she found this was the missing piece that we needed to understand more fully. So Dr. Stephen Porges says, neuroception is basically just this body's ability to detect threat from the environment, from other people, and from sensations within. It's this process that happens automatically and instantaneously, okay? So I'm not choosing it, it's just what happens. And the goal is, again, protection and survival. And he tells us too that all living organisms, even plants, have a neuroception to detect threat, which I would love to learn more about. Like, how does the plant world do this? Like, what's happening within the plant when they detect threat? I didn't get to learn about that yet, but I'm so fascinated to learn more. Even single-celled organisms, even organisms that don't have fully developed nervous systems, have this neuroception to threat to help them try to survive, all the way up to humans. Okay, but here's the cool thing, that mammals are very unique in that we also have a neuroception to safety. So mammals, we have this expanded capacity for neuroception in which we not only react instantaneously to threat, but we also respond instantaneously to cues of safety. Isn't that incredible? Like, we as humans and mammals, we have this superpower just within us, just our bodies and our being, to help someone who is feeling scared, feeling threat, to calm down just with our presence and other strategies that we can use. This is highly underutilized in our current parenting culture, because oftentimes we'll send the child away when they're bad, right? When they're bad, I say that with quotes. You're melting down, you know what? You go to your room and you come out when you're calm. But what do they actually need to calm down? They need that co-regulating from you adult, who can be a little more stable. Like, if you're not stable, that's probably not a good thing. But when you are stable, then you can share that calm with them. And the more reps that this child gets practicing that calming down from the state of threat with the help of someone else, the faster they will be able to self-regulate. So this is this key that a lot of people don't understand. They think they need to calm down, then come back. But you actually have to help them calm down. And that will get them to have better behaviors in the long run, because they can emotionally regulate themselves. The more you do it with your child, the faster and the more skills they will have in being able to self-regulate. So interesting. So she also gives us this great term called the platform, which is a way to think about our brain-body connection and whether it's vulnerable or whether it's sturdy. So first, let's talk about the word emotions a little bit. Emotions actually comes from the root word movere, which means to move. And emotions are the things within us that stir us into action, right? We've talked about this a few times. I'm feeling happy. I'm going to go give my friend a hug, or we're going to go on a walk. I'm feeling sad. I'm just going to sit on the couch and read this book. I'm feeling angry. I'm going to go slap my brother right now. These are the things that make us move, that lead to our behaviors. And humans are adaptively wired to have these sensations, feel emotions, and then act. And it's these behaviors that give us, the observer, clues. What's going on with this person? Are they sensing threat from the environment, or are they feeling safe? Are they vulnerable or sturdy? So just like you can have a financial budget, where you do deposits and withdrawals of money. You can also have a body budget, which has deposits and withdrawals. Internally, this body budget tracks things like water, salt, glucose levels as they fluctuate. They help you to know if you're hungry or something's hurting, what your feelings are. And externally, this body budget tracks what are our experiences? What have we done? What are we receiving from others? Um, and and the way she talks about it is helpful because you can say we can have withdrawals from our body budget or we can have deposits. So a withdrawal could be anything that's affecting our interoception, our sensory systems, or our brain. Like I'm dehydrated, I'm really thirsty, I'm so hungry, I am sleepy, I didn't get enough sleep last night. In the book, she mentioned sleep is like the number one thing that can change everything. I think we all know that, but it's the hardest thing to change, especially when we have little kids, because you really don't have control over it. But the second you start to have that bit of control over like how much sleep you get, take advantage of it, because that's going to be a game changer. If someone's physically hurt, or if you're a young child under the care of an adult you don't really know, like that's scary. I don't know what to expect from this person. Do they know how to help me when I need to go to the bathroom? Do they know what snacks I like? Maybe you've had an argument with a friend, or there's a loud sound bothering you. This is another great term that comes from Dr. Stephen Porges. He talks about broadcasting states from one person to another. So just like that power of the body language, like an intonation can make someone feel threat. A gesture, a face, narrow eyes. Like if I look at my child like this, are they going to feel safe and receptive? Or are they going to be like, ah, shut down, you know? So think about what we're doing with our bodies too. That could be a withdrawal and make them feel more vulnerable. Deposits, on the other hand, are things that help to make the brain-body connection detect more cues of safety. So a hug, a drink of water, a snack, taking a nap, laughing with friends, a warm blanket, some of those sensory things, like maybe that's really cozy for your child. Special time with a parent. Like I haven't sat down and talked to you like face to face. Let's just talk for a minute or play trains or whatever. And then again, just that simple broadcasted state from another person, just like the presence of the parents with the soft face, the gestures, things that signal safety and acceptance. So I came up with this image to further think about this, of just the platform being like a table with legs on it. So a sturdy platform would be one. Each of these legs is like a deposit to the body, which helps it to be more sturdy. I've gotten enough sleep, the noise level's right, I have enough food in my belly, the texture of my clothing feels good right now. I'm generally healthy, so I'm good. I'm with people that I know and trust. It's the right temperature in here. So it's like a lot of these different things. I'm good. I'm detecting cues of safety. Vulnerable platform. Maybe you have some good deposits to your body budget, but there's some withdrawals too, like, oh, didn't get enough sleep. It is way too loud in here. I can't think. I haven't had water in a long time, so I'm not feeling good there. I am starving because I did not eat anything yet. So in this state, people tend to detect more cues of threat. So like the exact same thing could happen to someone and they could interpret it in very different ways based on their platform. Like an example, like when I come down in the morning and I've had a good night of sleep and my 3-year-old is like, no, I can't find my shoes. You know, if I haven't had a lot of sleep, I'd be like, that's it. Like just, I'm going to the car, you find them yourself, you know, that sort of thing where I'm feeling it as like a threat versus I had a good night of sleep and I come down, mommy, I can't find my shoes. Oh, that is so frustrating. You know what? Can I help you look for them? Let's go look for them together. Doot, 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 you know, and it's like that changes so much of the feeling and just how we respond. So same thing for your kids. If they didn't get a good night of sleep, how are they going to act in the morning? You know, so just thinking about how different days bring different things based on where our platform is at. So if a child has a vulnerable platform, what kind of deposits could we help to put into their body budget? And some of it too, like if they're younger, you might have more control over deciding like, we are going to go home and take that nap versus like, we're just going to stay out and play. Because you know, as the adult, like that nap is going to be the key to their afternoon being peaceful and mine too. So I'm having fun. I want to stay, but I know for my child, I need to take them home for that nap. Or what I'm giving a lot of young child examples. This could translate to older kids too. So just thinking about as the adult, how can I help with these deposits that I actually have control over? Or just understanding your child further, like they have a lot of withdrawals. That's why they're acting like this instead of taking it personally. So in this book too, she gives us she says that behaviors are basically like a roadmap to how we can respond to our child. So what we see them exhibiting lets us know how we can respond. She gives us these really helpful pathways to think about. The green pathway is that pathway where they are experiencing safety and they're very receptive. Then you have the red and the blue pathway, which is where they're experiencing threat. Red is more like that fight or flight, highly activated. And the blue pathway is when you're immobilized, you're kind of shutting down. And I think it's important to note too, it's not like the objective ness of being safe or a threat, like sitting here in this room, it's a safe place right now, right? But maybe one of you is feeling like, oh, that light that's beaming down on me is just too much right now. I realize the light is right on your face. I'm sorry about that. But like, this is just too much. I'm highly activated or whatever it is. It's not the objective state of safe or threat. It's what is they are perceiving as safe or threat. So I think it's important to note like what you, the parent, perceive as threat or safe might be very different than what your child is perceiving as something that's safe or a threat. So this is the green pathway. You can think of your own child in this pathway. You know, their eyes are bright and shiny, they're smiling, they're laughing, they're relaxed, they can talk in different tone changes that are and move at appropriate levels for what you're doing. They can take in information, they're alert. So you know what your child looks like when they're in the green pathway like this. And these are some words that might describe a human in this pathway. Calm and safe, peaceful, focused, playful, engaged. So you know what this looks like when your child is like that. Why is it important to be in this green pathway? When your body is in this state, this is when you're most receptive to being with other people in positive ways. You're most receptive to learning new information and content. And you are most receptive when there is a challenge put on you. Like this is when you want to give your child that little push. You know, parents often wonder, am I pushing my child too much or not enough? Or when can I challenge them? Like, am I being too soft? But if you want to challenge your child, it's good to do it when they're in this state, when they're feeling safe. Because down here, I talk about how not all stress is bad. Stress that's predictable and moderate and controlled is what actually leads to resilience and growth. That when something feels a little stressful, that's like this thing that tells your brain something's different, pay attention. And that's how learning will happen. And they can have challenges in the state without like totally melting down or without shutting down or getting frustrated. So you can see how your child responds. Like, you know, today I'm thinking of my daughter last year. She had a really hard time walking into school by herself because it was brand new, this huge school. She was a first year. And so like, I was really annoyed because like, I just want to drop her off and I go walk in, but I was like, oh, is that a little scary? You know, okay, how about I park and I walk in with you? And that was enough. I offered her these cues of safety to feel like, okay, mom's here with me. She's going to help me walk in and then we're going to say goodbye, you know? And I knew she was too vulnerable to have me just push her out the door and say, go, you know? I gave that little bit of scaffolding to her to like offer these cues of safety. And with, you know, practice and reps, eventually, like I did that. I thought it would be like a week or two. I did it all year long. And by the end of the year, though, we only did it, I think, 2 mornings a week. Like we switched off. She came up with this plan. She's like, how about every other day, mommy, you walk me in? I was like, all right, I like it. But this year, she didn't even ask. Like when we got to school, she's like, I love school. She got out, and, you know, I was like, I didn't even say anything like, well, remember last year when we walked it, like I didn't want to remind her. So it's like, okay, great, have a great day. So it's just like little by little. Once she was in that green zone and once she had some scaffolding, when she was in that kind of scary place, she was able to get there on her own. And you never know, like, what is the result of this going to be? How long am I going to have to do this? And you just have to try to relax about it and feel okay. And just know you might not always get it right, but you just have to keep trying and problem solving. So the green zone is the one where stuff happens. The red pathway, you can probably also picture your child in this pathway too. Oh, by the way, this is one of the handouts that I gave you, which is helpful for you to take home with you, just to have like a little like refrigerator sheet or something so you can remember like what are the different pathways. And I love this too because she offers these this exercise for observation, just if you want to like pay attention to the pathways that your child are on during the day and like what time was it? like you can start to notice like, oh, is this happening at the same time every day? Or what is preceding it? Or, that's like how intense was it? That's another thing. Like if it's just a little bit, or if it's like full blown meltdown, that's important to notice. And how long it lasted too. Like one of my daughters, usually around dinner time, will have one of these like huge meltdowns. So I always have to pay attention. Like I need to get food in them before 5 o'clock or else this is going to happen. And sometimes I just totally space out. And then she starts doing these behaviors like, oh, food. And like try to scramble to make something and like get her to eat when she's already in this like dysregulated state. But anyways, just like try to notice what's going on beforehand. How long was it? How intense was it? And then you can help to see like, what could I do to like maybe prevent that next time or give them a little more deposits in their body budget so that they don't get to that state. But this is that one we had on the list of behaviors like biting, kicking, hitting. This is that state that they're in, bumping into things, falling over, threatening with hand gestures, just angry in general, moving fast. And these are words that would tend to describe a human in the red pathway. So you're all familiar with this. The blue pathway is the one where you shut down, you're kind of immobilized. So you could also imagine this in some of your children, like tired, drowsy, slow to move, low muscle tone. They're kind of like wandering around, not really looking at anything, very quiet or flat voice, slow movements. And these are words that might describe a human in this blue pathway. I thought this was interesting too, just some tips from the book to throw in there. Humans are social creatures. We can help our children feel safe through our loving and thoughtful relationships. So again, think of that power of co-regulations. Only mammals have this neuroception to safety. Like, let's use this. This is so fascinating. When a child feels unsafe, the most adaptive thing they can do is seek refuge in relationships and reassurance with those we trust in order to feel safe again. So when that child is feeling unsafe, whether they say it with their words or with their behaviors, think about how you, instead of sending them away until they're back into a calm state, how can you be with them or give them something in the environment or something that can help them to self-calm? That's what's going to help them regulate. This is interesting too. Control-seeking behaviors often indicate a child's basic sense of felt safety has been challenged. When children feel out of control, they often seek to control simple parts of their life that they can control. So like some children with eating, for example, like no one can force food down your child's throat and into their stomach. That is one thing that they have total control over. Going to the bathroom. No one can force someone to go to the bathroom. Like you could force someone to sit on a toilet, but you cannot force that person to go to the bathroom. So if you're having struggles with some of these things, think like, gosh, they are probably feeling a lack of control in a lot of things in their life. What are some little ways I could like give them choices, even in regards to things like going to the bathroom or eating? Like, oh, would you like to eat? I was going to give two choices that maybe they wouldn't like. Do you like to eat this green broccoli or this white bread? No, I'm just saying like giving them a little more control, like giving them some options that they would likely choose and some things that maybe you would choose. Also, there's a great, the Ellen Satter Institute does a lot of information about intuitive eating and things like that. So if you're interested in like, gosh, how do I do food with my family in a way that's respective to their body, but will also get them to like eat things that are good for them. That's helpful. There's another social media person that does this thing called Kids Eat in Color. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but they give a lot of great information about food and children. So that's a good one. Humans thrive on predictability to feel safe. So creating routines with cues of safety from a loving adult can help the platform become more stable, helping the child to be ready to take on new challenges. That's kind of like the walking my child in. Like we came up with that plan together and then eventually she was able to do it on her own. Maybe if nighttime is scary for your child, and the separation part, just, nighttime routines are a thing we usually do with our kids. Like, let's read a nice book. Like, what would you pick part of the routine, I'll pick part of it, and then we'll stick to it. Like, oh, we did our 2 books. Okay, I love you. Good night. And it's still, you can hold that boundary, but you're doing it in that loving way where you're giving those cues of safety to them. And this is interesting to point out too, that all humans are going to spend time in all the pathways. The goal isn't only to be in the green pathway. Like that's beyond what we're capable of as humans, because all of these are adaptive strategies. We are all going to spend time in the blue. We're all going to spend time in the red and in the green. But it's good to note that spending too much time in the red or the blue is really costly to our body budgets and makes our platform very vulnerable because it's so much stress. So even on this sheet here, I put down here at the bottom, the general guidelines she gives is like, infants, they tend to spend more time in the red and more time asleep because they depend on you totally to be regulated. So you just have to expect that. It's like they're gonna cry, they're gonna be sad. That's just normal. Toddlers, they are all over the map developmentally. So you're gonna have reds and blues and greens and reds and blues, and that's just normal. Sorry, parents, it's normal. Children 5+, this is like their brain has developed a little more. They've had more experience with life. During waking hours, about 30% of time max should be in the red or blue or blends of these defensive states. And they're still doing research about this today. But I thought it was nice, just like, what is normal, you know? And if your child seems to be experiencing more than that, that might be a time to like go find some support outside of your immediate family. This is cool to think about too, the blended pathways, like blue and green pathway blend, that could be something like meditation or prayer, which is like this idea of stillness without fear. So we can be in like these kind of blended pathways. The green and the red pathway is like play, like see this little puppy pile of these kids here, like they're running around and they're active and sometimes they're even like pushing each other. But what are their faces doing? They're happy, they're smiling. So like sometimes these blends are fine, they're okay. It's a lot of energy, but it's in a good way. Red and blue pathway blend. This is something that is often hard to detect because it just looks like a child is sad or tired or something. And on the outside, they look pretty calm, but on the inside, they are just like churning. They are churning. So especially like in a classroom, it's hard to detect these children because you always notice the ones that do the behaviors that cause the social problems, right? This doesn't really cause social problems, so it's harder to detect. So just being aware, like if you see a child that's very still or, you know, check in with them, do some co-regulation, do some connection time because they might need it even more than that other child who's acting out. You just don't know. So that's nice to kind of know about that. Okay. So these are, again, we kind of talked about this. Why shouldn't we spend too much time in the red or the blue? When you're in this shutdown or immobilized pathway, you can't really learn new things. Like you are just focused on survival at that point. There's a lot of disconnection with other people. You feel isolated or lonely. You're not really willing to take risks at this time or tolerate frustration. Like if you're trying to ask your child who's screaming on the floor to go put those toys away now, they are not going to have the capacity because they just are not in that state. Like I heard from Tina Payne Bryson, who is a psychologist or neuroscientist. She said there's even something that actually physically happens in the ear when you're like in this red state where it like makes it harder to hear. So it's like blocking out outside noises. It's like, that's interesting. That's why my child can't even understand anything I'm saying because they're in this crazy state. So if you want your child to clean up those toys in the playroom, first, help to regulate them, get them to that state, maybe scaffold a little, you know, this looks really hard for you right now. Should we do it later? Do you want to do it later after bath? Or do you want me to help you a little bit? Or should we play a game with it? You know, so just getting them back to the state of calm, coming up with a plan, moving on, and just knowing sometimes you're going to have to help. And that is okay. It is okay if you help. They do not have to do it by themselves. So this is this new lens that she gives us. So instead of seeing a child's behaviors as like good or bad, or like, how do I manage those behaviors to get them to do what's good? We see these behaviors more as like, oh, this is a clue. They are in the red pathway right now, or in the blue, or kind of mixed, not too intense. And then what do I do to help, you know, with that body budget? What can I add? What deposits can I give to their platform to help them to be able to feel more cues of safety from the environment? And just thinking about that neuroception and that those feedback loops, like you got your brain, your main job is survive. The main job of the brain is survival. And then our behaviors are also influenced by this interoception and these other sensory systems. So parents can observe their child, try to learn more about their individual needs, and get to know their stress triggers, like what could we help change before that to maybe help them. And when you see that they're in the red or the blue, like what can I do? How can I support them to get back to that green pathway? So this is just this new lens that she offers us. I love this quote from Brene Brown that she has in the book also. It's, we are hardwired to connect with others. It's what it gives us purpose and meaning to our lives. And without it, there is suffering. Okay, so let's start by talking about these behaviors that we put on our list this morning about like when we're an adult caring for a child, what do we want to happen when the child's behavior is appropriate? What do we want to happen when the child's behavior is inappropriate? Well, if it's appropriate, want them to keep doing it, right? Oh, good, you were nice to your sister. Let's do that every single time now. Or, oh, you hit your sister. Ooh, we don't want that to happen anymore. This is like the basics of behaviors. This is what we want. And traditional parenting or a cultural norm is called behaviorism. And this new lens that Mona Delahooke kind of expands upon in her book that other people have already done before, but she gives us this nice brain-body connection lens to see it through, is called positive discipline. In behaviorism, this approach focuses solely on the behaviors of the child and trying to manage them. Like, oh, that was good. Let's do something to keep them doing it. Oftentimes, or if it's bad, let's get them to stop doing it. And the approach generally uses punishment and reward to get it. And so this approach kind of assumes, oh, yeah, the child has control over their behaviors. If they just choose to do it or not do it, then the problem is solved, right? So trying to control those behaviors. From this behaviorist approach, discipline is kind of synonymous with punishment. So even when you hear that word now, like, well, what do you do to discipline your child? You think, what did you do to punish your child, right? So in this sense, from the behaviorist approach, punishment mostly uses fear to try to make a child so scared about doing that behavior again that they're not going to want to do it again. Or on the flip side of this, like, oh, I'm the nice parent. We're just going to offer rewards. We'll do sticker charts. We'll do getting a doll at the end of the week if so-and-so happens. You know, so this is more of like a doing to approach. I'm trying to control my child's behaviors with these external things. So basically, the adult wants the child to choose the behavior that is desired by the adult. And it doesn't really ask like, well, how does the child feel about this? Or do they have anything to say about it? Positive discipline, on the other hand, oh, I forgot to explain, this is like an iceberg in water. No, I'm a very good artist here. There is a iceberg, and what is visible above the water is these, I did start it, thank you, is these visible behaviors. But what we look at in positive discipline is not just what's above the water, not just these behaviors, but what is the underlying cause of that behavior? Like, why is my child acting like this? Okay. So this is kind of cluing into more like the reason behind it, the root cause. And this assumes also that the child doesn't have control over all those behaviors. Like, what did we learn about today? That those feedback loops between the brain-body connection, what is actually happening with this child? And this approach really heavily focuses on relationship between the two that are involved. Discipline means something very different from this approach. Discipline actually comes from the root word disciple, which means to teach or to mentor. You can think about like disciplines in a university, like what discipline are you learning? That sort of thing. And in this sense, the adult wants the child to be able to build skills with their assistance when needed, okay? And it invites the child's feelings and emotions about what is being asked of them. And this is more of like a working with approach through relationship, through offering relational safety. So here's that drawing again. So positive discipline really looks at the whole child. What are the above the surface behaviors and what's the root cause why? And we learned today that it's those feedback loops, right? Between this neuroception, the brain and the interoception and the external senses taking everything in. That's what's causing a lot of the behaviors. Then you might say, oh yeah, that's great, but we just can't let the child do anything just because they feel a certain way or, you know, have some emotions. The adult still has to be in charge. like, well, absolutely, the adult still has to be in charge. That's why I'm going to show you some of these different parenting styles that exist. These have all been studied with a lot of research, and they found the two most important factors in determining outcomes from parenting styles are level of connection, whether it's low or high. That'd be like your emotionally unresponsive if it's low, or emotionally responsive if it's high. And then structure, like, do you offer limits and boundaries? So either you don't, you're low in instilling limits and boundaries, or you're high where you are instilling limits and boundaries. And there's all these intersections of them. And specifically, we're going to talk about behaviorism and positive discipline. So in behaviorism, they have a lot of structure, right? This is the boundary, this is the limit. But the way that it's done is very emotionally unresponsive. So it's not really caring about how the child feels about it. You have that limit, but sorry, I don't care how you feel about it. Like, for example, let's say your preteen wants to go to the movie theater with all of the friend group, and it's a rated R movie, but this parent is going to bring this group of kids and they're all going to go see it. All the friends are going, and this child asked their parent, like, Dad, can I go to this movie with my friends? I really want to go. It's going to be so fun, and everyone's going. I can't be left out. And the dad is like, no, you're not going to that movie. The child's like, no, but I want to go. Like, my friends are going to think I'm stupid if I don't go, and I'll be left out. And you know what? I said, you are not going to the movie. That is enough. I don't want to hear another word about it. But dad, blah, blah. It goes on and on. You know what? That's it. No iPad this weekend. And if you keep yapping that mouth, you are not going to ever go to a movie again with your friends. It just like keeps ramping up, emotionally unresponsive. I don't care how you feel about it. You're not going to that movie. Okay. So on the other hand, you have this positive discipline approach, which is more this authoritative parenting style. So let's use the same example. This child tells the dad, I want to go to this movie with my friends. And, oh, you can't go to that movie. That's rated R. Like, that's something for when you're older. But dad, all my friends are going. All my friends are going. Oh, I know. That's really annoying. I know you really want to go to this movie, but it's just not in line with our family values. Sorry, this is just something you'll do. But dad, everyone's going to think I'm stupid. And I'm so mad at you. I'm angry. Like, you know what? I remember one time when I was little and my parents didn't let me go to that sleepover at my best friend's house. Everyone else was there and I wasn't. I was mad at him for weeks. I'm still mad at him today, but I did not go to that. And I know how you feel right now for just not going to the movie. The kid runs away and slams the door. Okay. So like, what was the difference in the reaction? The same result is there, right? The child's not going to the movie, but disconnection between the adult and the child. I don't care how you feel. It doesn't matter. You're not going. Versus like, gosh, that's really awful. I know how you feel. We're still not going to the movie. The parent doesn't need to get mad at them. The child can do all the emotions and the feelings and slam the door, but the parent can just say, this is our decision, not in line with our family values, whatever it is. So you can like translate that to anything from a younger child to an older child, holding that limit in place, but doing it kindly, firmly, acknowledging, yeah, I know it's not great for you, but this is what we're going to have to do. Okay, so which approach actually achieves the goals that we have for our children? With behaviorism, we tend to use shame, yelling at, taking something away, just these punishment approaches, right? You're grounded, you got a timeout, you compare to someone else, you isolate them, you lecture. But what pathway does this actually push our child to when we use these? They tend to be more pushed to the red pathway, blue pathway, the state that humans cannot learn new things in. They cannot be challenged because they are in this like survival mode where they are just upset. They need to get back to the green pathway to be able to do that. So if you really want your kids to grow up to be those things that we talked about, is this really going to get there? Is it really going to get there? I just have to say too, parents will spend time probably in all those different parenting styles. It's not like you should only do positive discipline. Like that's unrealistic. Like we are in all the pathways all the time. So even myself, I know I tend to become more neglectful or permissive when I am really tired. Like my kids are like, Mom, we want a bowl of ice cream. I'm just like, fine, go get your ice cream. Like, just get away from me. Like, I don't care. Boundary was not kept, right? But you know what? That's okay. I was not able to deal with it at the moment. They got an extra bowl of ice cream, whatever, So it's like, this is what happens in life. Parents all day long are going like this, just like kids are. And we are not always going to be a positive discipline approach. That's just unrealistic. So I just want you to know, I'm not saying like everyone should just do positive disciplines. Like no one can do that all day long. It's nice to have a goal of a certain way, but it shouldn't be expected that you should do it all the time. So like be kind to yourself too. Like we are all humans and we have emotions too, right? Behaviorism, is this actually getting what we want when we use rewards? If you do this, then you'll get that. It's like dangling that carrot for them. You might use like sticker charts or reward charts, or this is a big one that we don't realize we do that can be very hurtful, is only rewarding our child with our affection when they're doing what we want them to do. Like, you know what? You are acting crazy right now. No, you can't get a hug. You can't sit by me. Go away. Like we don't realize sometimes a reward is our affection only when they're doing what we want them to do. We need to be able to show our affection to our children at any day. It's like, this is called unconditional parenting. Like whether you're bad or good, I am going to love you and I'm going to be there for you. Like this is annoying, but it's not your behavior that determines my love for you. It is you that I love, and some behaviors that I find crazy, but I will always accept you. So that's an important message we want to send to our children. But when we use these rewards, what we're telling them is, oh, I don't trust you to do this on your own. I need to give you some external incentive for you to do that. Or this thing that I want you to do on your own, it's not worth it. So that's why I have to add this like nice thing with it. This is interesting that I read about. So if you do offer a reward to your child and they end up not getting it, like, well, you didn't clean your room every day this week, so sorry, you don't get to go to that movie with your friends. The brain and body perceives this as a punishment. So even if you think you're like, oh, I'm not punishing them, it's like, that is how the body is perceiving it. And there's a lot of research that shows that interest and internal motivation goes way down or is totally lost if there's some reward attached to it. So that's interesting. Also, our brains are prediction machines, right? So like if every time you want your child to do something, you use this reward method, you're just like training them to expect something every time you ask something from them. So if you're like, oh, can you clear your dishes to the sink after dinner? Like, well, what are you going to give me? It's like, well, what am I going to give you? I'm not going to give you anything. It's like, but every other time I do something, you give me something. So why won't you give it to me now? It's like we are training them to expect some special thing when it's just a normal thing, like moving your dish to the sink. So think about that too. Like, again, all parents will use these methods, but if you really want them to be more effective, the less you do it, the more effective it's going to be. That's just a little tip. These also always seem to very, very much work short term. Like if you notice, like you do the sticker chart or the something, it's like, oh, the first few days, this is going great. And then all of a sudden it's like, they don't care about it. Or like, well, I'll give you 2 stickers instead of 1. Or, you have to like up the ante to make it feel a little more like effective. And it's not really a good long-term solution. So this guy, Alfie Kohn, has written a lot of great books on this topic. Punished by Rewards was really fascinating. It has a lot of information about extensive research that's been done on rewards, punishment, and like that idea of internal motivation and incentive going way down. Like he even does stuff like in the workplace, like lots of times when bonuses are attached to things, for example, like performance goes down or like people don't do it. Like anyways, you just have to read the book. It's really good and interesting. He also wrote a book called Unconditional Parenting, which is again, that idea of like, you don't have to do what I ask you for me to love you. Like, this is the message we want to send our kids. Like, I am going to unconditionally love you. I'm not going to try to control your behaviors. I'm going to work with you in this journey of parenting, instead of just me trying to control you. So that is a really beautiful one too, if you want some inspiration. Okay, so with behaviorism, does this actually achieve these things we want for our kids? We want them to be happy, grow up, have meaningful relationships. Like even if a behavior can be controlled, what is the inner state of the child? What's the relationship between the adult and the child and the long-term goals? We have to model to them what we want them to do. If they see us yelling at them or punishing them or being rude to them when they're doing something that's not appropriate, they might expect that from a future partner or something like, oh, this is just the way it is. If you want them to be confident and stand up for themselves, like if your child is trying to stand up for themselves and negotiate with you and you just shut them down every single time, like I'm the adult, I have the final answer, do not question me. Is that going to help them feel confident to stand up for themselves with other people that they meet in life? Just something to ask, just to think about, like what will actually get them to that point? Okay, so from the positive discipline approach, will positive discipline help us to achieve these goals we have for our children? Well, I love the part about emotionally responsive. Like we can still observe these behaviors of our children. We can kind of just observe them non-judgmentally, acknowledge their feelings and emotions about things. We now know that we have this really important role of co-regulating, if that's possible, to help that nervous system get back to the green pathway. And we can even help adding some deposits to their body budget, because this green pathway is the one where children are actually receptive to learning. They're feeling safe. They are ready to learn and do and grow and challenge. Discipline too, we use our limits, right? We still don't let them do those things that they're not supposed to. And we can help them along. Scaffolding. I was just talking with a parent at the break about how she helped her child learn how to clean up a space because she couldn't yet do it on her own. And she would work with her to do it for a whole year before now she can mostly do it on her own. But she had to do that scaffolding. Like that was a teaching moment. It wasn't just punishing her to do it on her own. She helped her along to get her to that point. And it's tailoring that response to that specific individual because everyone is very different. So this is just a side by side. Again, like what are we giving our brain and our body reps of behaviors leading to moving to the red pathway and the blue pathway and shutdown and fight and flight and disconnection and feeling like I'm not good enough, I'm not trustworthy, I don't have a lot of control in this, my feelings and emotions don't matter? Or do we want to try to give our children's bodies and brains these reps of, oh, someone's helping me move from the state of fight or flight or immobilization back to the green pathway. I'm learning how to move from this state to the green pathway with the help of someone else. I actually have some say in what happens to me. We can negotiate a little bit. We can problem solve together, and my parents listening to me and understanding. Making mistakes would feel more like, oh, I make mistakes, but that's not the end of the world. I'm still learning, and we can figure out a good solution to this. My feelings and my emotions matter. I'm going to listen to what my body is telling me because they are being acknowledged and accepted. And connection with the adult and cues of safety, just building relationship is so important. So important. And I just want to acknowledge, like, again, all parents are going to do all these forms of parenting, but this is particularly hard to do because there's so much thinking involved. It's like in the moment, like, what do I say to my child to actually help them calm down? Or what should I do to help solve this problem? Or, it's just so much thinking and thought and acknowledging feelings. Like all day long, I hear myself with my children, like within the first like 10 minutes of waking up, just like, oh yeah, you stubbed your toe, ouch. Or, oh, you're hung, you have to go to the bathroom. Yeah, let's get to the bathroom. It's like this like constant stream of acknowledging, and it is exhausting. It is exhausting. So I just want to recognize that this is not easy to do and it's hard to do. So give yourself some compassion when it's not working out the way that you would like it to. Okay, so in the book, I love how Mona Delahook talks about how when we're two people coming together, we're not just two people coming together. We are two nervous systems coming together, right? State of this platform and the state of this platform what's going on with these two and what's going to happen when they start interacting. She gives us this strategy to use, like for adults, when you witness a behavior, this is what you can do, okay? So just first listed out, you check yourself by observing your own pathway. Am I on the green, the red, or the blue? Check your child by observing his or her pathway. And then you proceed with strategies personalized to your child by compassionately working from the bottom up, that's like co-regulating, to the top-down strategies. Like once a child is back in the green, then you can do some more problem solving, offer them a challenge, ask them to do something, that sort of thing. And she gives us this nice LOVE acronym to guide us. I'm going to look a little more specifically at each one of these here. So first, check yourself. This is where I'm going to talk about the parent, because I know what it's like to be a parent. It is so hard. And each one of us, we have these brains in our heads that we've been carrying around since we were children, right? Our brains are our prediction machines, which have taken in all of these things that we've experienced and cataloged it. Safe, neutral, threat. And then how do I respond to what is happening to me based on what has been cataloged? Like, how was I parented? What did my parents do when I was screaming? Did I have this scary response to it? Sometimes our own children will trigger our own response to what we felt when we were parented. Like when I was yelling and screaming, my mom and dad shut me in my room. I'm just giving an example. My parents didn't do that to me, I don't think, but and then I start to feel this shutdown, like not okay, not safe. So it's like, I don't know how to deal with this when my own child is doing this. This is like a trigger for a parent. And so you often will use the same method that your parents used with you to get that to stop, this is too much, So just recognizing like, wow, there's probably a lot of things from my past that I don't even realize that I'm getting triggered because I've had reps with this experience and I have this learned physiological response. So it's not really my fault. Like, was it my fault? That's just what happened to me. And this is how my body responds. But the good news is that we can, as adults, retrain our brains to feel more cues of safety around these things that are leading us to more of this threat response. Like as an adult, we have the advantage of having this fully mature brain. If you're older than like 25 or 26, you are like your mature brain. We can use more top-down strategies on ourselves, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. But we can help to give our own body cues of safety when these things come up with our children. I found this nice, I have this St. Margaret's House little thing that I get in the mail, but there was this nice story that I was going to read to you, which is very relevant to this. It says, I was in self class among a handful of our guests, and Mary Fran, as our licensed clinical social worker, was facilitating the conversation. All of a sudden, one of the guests jumped up and exclaimed, but what if you were born in prison to a mama who didn't love you? What then? From across the table, her pain and woundedness hit me like a brick. How does a child make it through the world, a world in her case beset with so many obstacles, when she believes her own mother doesn't love her? I will never forget how Mary Fran responded. With such tenderness for this guest, she corrected, perhaps it's not that your mother didn't love you, but rather that she didn't know how to love you. Perhaps she was too wounded herself and in such dire circumstances to be capable of showing you her love. This is what we do at St. Margaret's House. We offer new perspectives. This guest has lived her entire life thinking she is unlovable, and her actions reflect that belief. In self-class that day, Mary Fran pointed out the distortion in her thinking. It's not that she's unlovable, rather that her mother was incapable of loving her for reasons beyond the child's control. So this guest was offered a new perspective to make sense of her past and like reevaluate, oh, like it's actually not me. It was my mom wasn't capable of that. And I could be loved, like it's like this aha moment and this healing moment that a lot of adults need. They need to create this new narrative to be able to move on. And then furthermore, all the adults have interoception and sensory systems too. So like, what is your own body awareness that's leading you to do certain things in your actions? How do you take in the environment? Maybe you're very sensitive to sound, or Like with children, there's just a lot of sound and noise. And that's often one of the things that just like, I cannot calm myself after that. So even just like getting like a little earplugs to put in or something when it's like, how can I accommodate my need for more quiet when I'm with my kids? Like something simple, like I'm going to put my earplugs in, or just one in one ear, so I can still hear my kids. But um, just thinking about that for yourself too, and offering yourself so much self-compassion, because it is so hard. How's your platform? What deposits to your body budget do you need? Maybe this could be done in the moment with your child, just in your head, like, gosh, what could I do right now to help me? Or even long term, like, I am really struggling right now in parenting. Like, what are some changes I have some slight control over that I could do? Like, maybe I could ask my partner if on the weekend I could have 1 extra hour of sleep. Like, you get up with the kids, I need 1 more hour of sleep. Just like thinking through some of those things and then communicating it with your partner. What pathway are you in? Like in the moment, am I in the green? Am I in the red or the blue? Here's some nice strategies that you can actually do. These are more like top-down strategies because we are adults. We can help ourselves with some of these. Deep breathing with an extended exhale. Breathing is really important just to getting that oxygen within you. Stepping away for a moment. Sometimes, again, you're the only one with the kids. It's not realistic. Even just like stepping to the other room, like letting them know, like, I need a second. I'll be back. Just allowing yourself to observe like how you are feeling without judgment. Like there's so much guilt. Someone put that up there, mom guilt. Um, don't feel guilty about feeling upset or angry. It's like, this is something that's like this happens to everybody, you know? Um, come up with some strategies to reset. I love this one in the book. Go brush your teeth. It's like something physical. You can do like, all right, kids, I'm gonna go like brush my teeth and I'll be right back. And just like gives you that freshness in your mouth, like a reset, like away from everybody. Squeeze your toes. This is something that there's research showing that drawing attention to the feet is actually like grounding to your nervous system. Which is like, that's interesting. Like jumping or like jumping jacks or squeezing your toes. Imagine your child as a newborn. That's a good one that will probably put a little smile on your face, or like have a picture in your pocket of them as a newborn. And then always, even though we're adults, co-regulation is always so huge. Like that is number one. Like, who could I go to help me regulate myself? Lots of times we'll go to our partner, call a friend right away, or just want to talk to someone about it to feel better. And there's this research back, self-compassion break that was written by Kristen Neff and someone else, but it's like giving you something in the moment to do instead of just like, this is really hard. It's like you acknowledge that it's really hard. You might even say something like, oh, this is stressful. I am not alone. May I be kind or gentle to myself. So it's not only acknowledging it, but it's like almost sending yourself some self-compassion in that moment, like regulating yourself through a kindness said to you. And they also recommend adding like a light physical touch to it, like hand over your heart or hand on your cheek. It's like that touch can be so regulating just in the way that it is with your own child. But if this is totally not your thing, just don't do it. I know this might not, you might think like, that's not me. Like, that's fine. It's just another strategy that's out there. But if like, for example, you're feeling like, gosh, I do have a lot of things I need to make sense of from my past, or I am trying to deal with these triggers and I've tried all these things on my own, but I just do not know how to deal with it right now. Or my child is in the red or the blue, like more than half the day. Like, I don't know how to help co-regulate them. This is a great resource right in our own community, Family Psychology of South Bend. John Peterson and his wife, Sharon Bain, are psychologists. They're partners of ours at Good Shepherd, but they do fantastic work. So I highly recommend them if that's something that might be helpful to you. There's also, this is Kristen Neff who made that self-compassion exercise, that break. There's this book I've been hearing about that I really want to read. It's called Fierce Self-Compassion. It is for women. Sorry, men in here, but I'm sure we could get some nice things out of that, just to like give ourselves a break, learn how to be kind to ourselves. This is another handout I gave you that you could take home and look at if you want to. This is like for the adult, just strategies that you could use to help regulate yourself, just like thinking through it at a quiet moment. Like, what could I do when I'm by myself with my children right in the moment? What could I do when I'm by myself in the moment? Like even just away from my children? Like, could I step to the other room? Something like that. And then co-regulation strategies that you can do when you're with your children or away from your children if you have another person that you can co-regulate with. So just like thinking through it and writing a few ideas down. So when that big moment comes, you have something to think back on, like, oh yeah, this was one of the things I was going to try. I'm not going to explode. I'm going to try to, okay, I'm breathing. Here's my newborn picture I'm looking at. It like gives you something to do. And then this is another thing that if in your own time might be helpful to do, just thinking about withdrawals from your body budget or deposits that you could give to your body budget. Just, making a list or communicating this with your partner or someone that helps you with your children's care. And then number 3 is this one: proceed with strategies personalized to your child. So first, I'm sorry, we didn't do 2. 2 is check your child, but we talked about that mostly at the beginning, so I don't need to go into detail about that. I love this example she gives in the book too. Like when we are co-regulating with this child, you can think of this tennis analogy that's like a serve and return. Like in the game of tennis, the person serves the ball across the net and the other person on the other side has to know like where are they going to hit it, and then they hit it over here, so I'm going to come here and hit it back. And the person on the other side is thinking like, where are they going to hit the ball? And they have to try to guess. They're standing over there like, oh no, it's over here a little more. So then they adjust. So this is kind of like what happens when you are interacting with a child, right? The child gives you a serve. What did they serve to you? Like, how am I going to react? Like if they serve something to you, how can I react to help bring it back to the green instead of escalating it more into red or blue? So like I say this thing to my child, they respond with a yell. That didn't work. Let me try this. Let me rub their shoulder. Oh, they didn't like that either. So it's like this back and forth where it's in real time. It's so hard. You just have to try to guess like what could help them. Like I'm going to try this. Oh, got it wrong. Let me try again. Oh, got it wrong again. And then, hopefully once the back and forth feels safe and nurturing, that's when you've achieved co-regulation. Okay. And just acknowledging we're not always going to get it right. Some days it might feel like, ooh, this is working. And other days it might be like, I have no idea what is going to help my child, but I'm trying. So you just offer these cues of safety that are specific to your child's nervous system, and it's delivered through your relationship with them. So here's the LOVE acronym. So first, you look at your child with soft eyes. Body language is so important. We always forget that. If you find yourself storming towards your child like this, like just like, like try to like get your face back, like just smile, soft eyes. Okay, here I go. It helps you to calm down a little bit, but it also broadcasts that message of acceptance and warmth and affection. Because if your child sees you storming up at them, that's all they need to know to shut down. They're not going to listen to anything you say, right? It's like, what do we actually want to do? We want them to learn, broadcast that affection and warmth to them. Observe without judgment. So again, instead of seeing these behaviors as good or bad, we try to understand them as, this is just an outward manifestation of my child's platform. Like they're feeling vulnerable right now, or they're feeling safe and okay. And their body language is huge for you too. Like, what is their face doing? What are their gestures doing? And just noticing without judgment, it helps us as parents to feel less self-judgment for ourselves and self-blame for what we've done to contribute to whatever is going on. I always tell parents, try not to take it personally. This is the hardest thing as a parent. Don't take it personally. Your child is just struggling, and you're their safe person where they can act out all the things that they're feeling. So don't take it personally. We're all doing the best we can with the information and the bodies we have, child and adult, right? V is validate your child's experience when you witness struggles. So again, that simple piece that we often miss is just simply, I'm going to acknowledge your feelings and your emotions. Like, yeah, this is really hard. This is really hard right now. A tip I always give parents too with this is when you're acknowledging their feelings, it's helpful to do it in a very authentic tone or voice, like just like the same way you would with like an adult friend, instead of like walking up to your throat like, oh gosh, you look so mad right now. Like they're going to feel like, ooh, like, what are you doing? Like, don't say that to me, instead of just like, whoa, you're mad. Like, what's going on? Like, can you feel the difference in the tone? Like, don't make it like sing-songy and like condescending. Make it like the same way that you would talk to like your partner, an adult friend. Like, you're so upset right now. You're really mad. Like, what happened? So that could be helpful in making it more effective. E, experience safety together. So once you get to the green, if you can get to the green, you share your green pathway with your child. And then based on that individual, like, oh, they like tight hugs, or this child does not like tight hugs. They like a gentle rub on the back. You use the things that will help them to calm down. And children just want to feel seen and understood, and they don't want to feel alone. And there's so much power in just the body language, those nonverbal cues, gestures, and the proximity to you. So just remembering all those things when you figure out how you're going to co-regulate with them. So here it is again. There's the parent giving their green to the blue child or to the red pathway child. And then you both have this green pathway together. This is another handout I gave everybody, that when you go home and you're thinking about this and maybe trying to put some of it into practice, you can say like, what was that? All that stuff she said today? I don't really remember, but I liked it, but I don't know what to do. So this is just like a very simple reminder. It's like this flow chart. Your child does this behavior, and then what do I do? Okay, first check yourself. What pathway am I on? And this is helpful too. I put this here. If you are stuck in the red or the blue pathway and you just cannot get to that green pathway, it is okay to not deal with the thing in that moment. Like, I think as parents, we think like, I need to solve this right away or else they're not going to learn anything from it. They're just, I'm just letting them get away with it. Well, actually, it's probably better if you wait when you're calm and they're calm, unless there's like something like there's physical stuff going on. You need to like separate them, like separate your children so everyone's safe, but say, you know what, we're going to talk about this later because this is not a good time for me to talk. I need to calm down. Just even saying it like that, and then do other things until you can talk about it. Or if you are stuck in the red pathway or the blue pathway and you do end up responding to your child with more of like cues of threat, later the repair is what's so important. Like going to them later, like it's bedtime, you're tucking them in, like, oh, earlier today in the kitchen when I yelled, yeah, I don't feel good about that. I should not have said that to you like that. And I'm really sorry. It could be something as simple as that. You don't need to like drag it out, but just acknowledging it, like a heartfelt apology. Like for children, this is such good modeling too, coming from the adult. Like anyone who makes a mistake can repair later, and that helps repair the relationship. It is so good. So parents, take advantage of that, because we do respond to our child with cues of threat often, but that is the powerful thing that you can do afterward. Okay. And then what we talked about too, like once the adult is in the green pathway, you can then check your child. Where are they? If they're on the green pathway, great. Challenge them a little bit, have some fun with them, enjoy some social connection, joy, learning. You can try to do problem solving together with them, scaffold a little bit. But if they're in that red or that blue pathway, that's where that LOVE acronym can be really helpful. So you can go through that, like the soft eyes, observe without judgment, validate, and then experience safety together. That's just a little reminder of those. That's the other handout I had. I think I just have all the handouts here at the end. Oh, this is one more that I want to send you home with. I don't think, let's see what time it is. Yeah, we're a little over. I'll let you take this home and look at it, but this is another great, once the child is regulated, a way that you can do problem solving with them that involves both the parent and the child, that takes into account like what are some of their ideas and how can you actually guide that conversation to have it be fruitful instead of just like, we didn't come up with any ideas, so this is helpful for you as well. So yeah, just again, referring back to what we talked about at the beginning, like with all this information, how can we as parents adjust our attitude and our approach to children? We're in the process of developing emotional skills. Like we kind of feel the same way about physical skills and emotional skills now. Like how can we scaffold? How can we help them? Just using this new lens that Mona Delahook gives us. This is again that little checklist of like, how do we actually teach emotional regulation? Okay, so I think that is it for today.